Coming up next on Two Cops, One Donut. Drug dependency is a big one. They'll get them dependent on drugs and facilitate that dependency. And
Drugs is huge. I've literally got Facebook search warrant evidence of the private messaging between, and this is just one example of this particular trafficker saying, "Do this date first," and the girls, multiple of the victims, are saying, "Daddy, can I have a pill? Do this date first. Daddy, can I, go to bed or go see my family or a friend? Do these dates first." So totally controlling them through every means, and the fentanyl pills are a huge part of this as well right now.
all right, welcome back. Two Cops, One Donut. I'm your host, Eric Levine. And with me today, I have retired detective Heidi Chance. How are you doing, ma'am?
Very good.
So today, for those wondering, Heidi, you may not be familiar with this, but I talk a lot at the beginning, and so people have complained and said, just tell us what the hell the episode's going to be about, and then do your talking, so we can decide if we're going to listen. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair.
It sounds like cops.
Yeah, it is cops. And so today's episode is going to be about human sex trafficking, and I got like the cream of the crop. Somebody that's done the undercover work, has a lot of good things going out there for as far as training and awareness. So I brought Heidi on here, and we're going to talk about her organization, A Chance for Awareness, and her experience. But as most of you know, I like to get to know my guests first, and I like people to get to know the guests. So to try to find that correlation that a lot of us first responders have of why we got into the life of service, so to speak. So for you, Heidi, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And, did you have family in law enforcement? What got you into this?
So I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and I am a Phoenician. I guess that's what they call us. Born
Okay.
and raised, which is very rare actually, because there's a lot of people that come to Arizona for the weather. I have no idea why, because it's like 106 degrees out today.
Yeah.
But
Texas
yeah,
is it's 107, as a matter of fact.
yeah. So, but yeah, no, I do have law enforcement in my background in my family. My dad is also retired law enforcement, and then my grandfather was law enforcement in New York. So
Okay.
it's in the
So,
blood for sure.
so it's in the blood.
Uh-huh.
So was he a NYPD cop?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's got to be. Is he still alive?
No, unfortunately.
Okay. Did you know him real well by chance? I'm just.
I knew him when he moved out to Arizona for health reasons, so he had already retired from NYPD. But I've heard
Okay.
stories.
Okay. I was curious if he got a chance to kind of see the difference between where he was a cop versus where you were a cop, because there's that huge cultural difference being, well, you're kind of a Wild West person where you're at.
Yes.
Me, I kind of got a little mix. I got that Southern hospitality slash, a little bit of cowboyish, with our bad guys.
Yeah.
But I know I got quite a few friends. I got some out in Scottsdale, and I've had quite a few of the Pinell County guys on, including Sheriff Lamb and Chief Deputy Matt Thomas, if you're familiar with him.
Yep.
And then I'm going to have Frank, Fridays with Frank, the guy that pulls cars over there in Pinell County and makes everybody look like jackwagons.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's so funny. It's like a funny version of Cops is really what it is. But they put all that stuff out there themselves, which is this is kind of why I got the podcast going, is because I don't feel like we can get our message out there as much as we want and in control of it, so to speak. So you're doing it. You saw it. You saw that we need to control our narratives and stuff like that. So you obviously saw the human sex trafficking thing being an issue, but we'll get to that. So,
Yeah.
so you become a cop in Arizona. Got some family that's police officers. Now, did you always know? Did you have that?
So I had I don't know, disease or trait of being in the right place at the right time.
Okay.
I think that's one of those things. So I actually thought I was going to go in the Air Force. So I even switched high schools to do junior ROTC.
Okay.
And I thought I was going to be security police officer in the Air Force because I was waiting to be 21. But uniquely, right after graduating high school, I actually started the hiring process for Phoenix Police Department for a new position that they had called cadet trainee. And so it was a civilian position for individuals between 18 and 21 and trying to get them in a spot where they can become officers someday.
So we need to let people know that you have several dogs.
I do.
And they may or may not partake in this podcast today.
Yes.
And for those that know me, no, I don't like to edit anything out if I don't have to. So I think having the dogs in there is fun and natural, and we're gonna leave them
We
in
all
there.
have pets.
Yes, we do.
And they don't cooperate sometimes.
I mean, I have real full-size dogs. You have little half dogs.
Yeah.
What are their names?
I've got 3 dogs. So we have Callie, we have Lola, and we have Cash. And Cash is with a K, and he is one that I just recently got in November. I did not have the opportunity to name him, but he has a sibling who is my stepdaughter's dog, and his name is Nash. So Nash and Cash.
Oh, I was hoping it was money. Cash money.
That would be good. Yeah.
All right. So you go through the cadet program. You become basically civilianized version of a cop, and that gives you the bug, and you just roll with it.
Yeah. So actually, my dad was Phoenix Police Department, and so he had helped me get on with the cadet program, and inspired me as always to follow in his footsteps. And so basically, when I started with the cadet program, it was like a light blue shirt, a fully marked patrol car, a 3-week academy, pepper spray, a baton, and me. And there were 5 of us originally. So I'm the first female for the program ever for Phoenix Police Department, and I'm badge number 2.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I actually have the badge number 2.
Okay. And then you would get to mess with bad guys and be like, who does number 2 work for?
Right. Yeah, no, it was definitely a interesting dynamic. They had never had a program like this before, so it was a lot of trial and error. I rode with another officer for a long time. Then I was off on my own, and I was responding to accidents, burglaries where there's no, follow-up, that there's no suspect there, but just fingerprints.
Yep.
Crime scenes, taking photos of crime scenes, those kind of things. But inevitably, driving a fully marked patrol car, I rolled up on hot calls all the time, and, really had to, think on my feet at 18, 19 years old as far as getting back up, calming people down, preserving evidence, all those things, even that young.
So now with your experience, as fully retired peace officer, have a career under your belt, looking back, do you feel like they kind of set you up for failure and you just got lucky? Or do you feel like they trained you well enough to be able to handle all that?
I feel like I was, very fortunate that nothing, knock on wood, bad happened. But I think maybe changing that program and this whole driving a fully marked patrol car, being mistaken for an officer. Like, I know we have citizen volunteers that drive like a Toyota pickup truck. I think they should have put us, apart from a fully marked patrol car, because literally people would be, how people flag us down all the time. Yeah. And they don't know that a light blue shirt doesn't mean that I'm not sworn.
Right.
So it put me in some situations that I probably should not have been in. And amazingly,
my department did the same thing. I can't remember what they called it. But luckily, much different uniform, much different car. I mean, it's a Tahoe, I think, which we all are driving Tahoes right now, but clearly different markings on the side. But that was a concern. I was like, man, if they dress them like us and they give them one of our cars, like, that's going to be a mistake. Like, we saw the writing on the wall, and especially the side of town I work in, which is like our most violent side of town. I'm like, that's the last thing you need is to be working a burglary and a damn shootout comes by because there's a lot of gang activity and stuff, and that's not uncommon. Shoot, they'll pop shots at our cars, like that stuff happens.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this was back in 1997,
okay,
96.
I was a
So,
freshman in high school,
oh, okay. Well, I'm
so
older than you.
I'm not too much younger, but
Yeah.
I was almost there. But
Yeah.
if you would have asked 18-year-old me if I was ready to be a cop, I would have told you hell yeah. But if
Yeah.
you ask 40-year-old me if I was ready then, I don't think I was ready even till I was 25.
Yeah.
To be honest, my maturity level, at least my sense of humor, it hasn't changed since I was 14 years old. So, I don't know that I'll ever truly be ready to be a cop, but here they still keep me on.
Yeah, they
Amazingly.
let you do it.
Yeah, I do think the females, they mature much earlier than us, and they take things a lot more serious than the fellas typically do. There are some that do, but I think what draws us into this career field. Now, you had your dad, and I'm the same. I'm in the same boat as you are. My dad retired from the department I'm at, and I actually tried to make it on my own at other departments before I got there because I didn't want to be in his shadow and none of that. And here I am anyway. So,
Yeah.
did you get to take any calls with him?
So basically in 99, when I graduated the academy, he gave me his badge because he had retired that year also. So
Oh, that's
he
awesome.
had, he had the chief give me the patrolman badge, and my dad pinned it on me, and it was like that. So
That is
special.
cool. That is cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had my dad pin my badge, and then my wife after all the rest of them. Through the promotions and,
Oh
and
my
whatnot.
gosh.
What is that?
Apparently, my virtual assistant, Miss A, was listening to our conversation. She started.
It's like Siri messing with me. My
Yeah.
watch goes off all the time when I'm
Oh,
doing
yeah.
these. This is going to be a fun podcast just
I
with
think so.
all the interruptions.
There's
I love
ghosts
it.
in my house, I think.
I will make sure not to say the A word.
Okay, yes.
Because
Neither one of us.
I understand what you're talking about.
I call her my virtual assistant.
She's always listening.
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, I got to take a few calls with my dad.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. He's a lieutenant, so anytime people heard him chime up on the radio that he was taking an assist with me, they didn't put the connection together, and they would be like, no, you can't let the lieutenant be taking calls. Like, you don't let sergeants take calls, and the lieutenant's out there taking a call.
Yeah.
And finally, the sergeant had to get on there and like, it's his son. Let him take a call with his son.
That's funny.
Yeah. So
how big of an agency were you?
Ours is roughly 2,000.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're covering about 390 something square miles. Heavily populated, I think about 1.2 million people.
Yeah.
So pretty big. A lot of fun for sure. We like to say it's a big city with a small town feel. So it's kind of the way it is over here.
Yeah.
Without naming
huge.
it.
Yeah. Phoenix is the 5th largest city in the United States right now.
Is it?
And when I first started back in 99, we had 3,200 officers.
Okay.
I think we're at 2,600 now.
Yeah. We should be, according to our population, if you look at places that are similar like Baltimore, we should have 3,000 to 3,500, I think is the number, roughly. And we just can't we'll bounce from 1,700 to 2,000, I guess. We just can't keep up. Can't get enough people anymore. Now that's the hard part, getting people to want to do the job. So and
definitely.
As you know, the human trafficking side in my neck of the woods, and your neck of the woods over in Arizona, this is bad because we're right by the border. But okay, so you get into the police work. How long did it take you? Because I want to jump into your specialty. We're about 15 minutes in. I think it's a good time to transition. So you get a little taste for everything, being in patrol and whatnot. Were you leaning towards human trafficking? Because I don't really think back then that was such a popular name as it is today. But what were you leaning towards?
I didn't know. I knew, obviously, that I wanted to move around the department, and I probably should have moved around a lot more than I did. But once I got to the human trafficking unit, I actually spent almost 14 years there. But I spent in my years in patrol in one precinct, I was patrol, SRO, community action officer, all of those kind of things in the one precinct. And so when I was a community action officer, I'm sorry, not community action, a school resource officer, that's when I learned more about trafficking. The unit was called Vice back then. So
Yep.
Vice was, misdemeanor prostitution, a little bit of undercover work. It was separate from the drug guys. We have our own drug enforcement bureau portion of Phoenix Police Department, so they have their undercover. So it was really just prostitution, but it didn't really evolve into what it is today until later. But I started doing like temporary shadows with them based on my time as a school resource officer. I would get the patrol car keys, go to the school, end my shift, return the patrol car. And one day going in, I saw this girl that was in the juvenile holding area that I knew when she was in 7th and 8th grade. And she's still a juvenile, but a little older at that day. And she was in trouble. I was like, "Why are you here?" you know, and she recognized me, and she was like, "Well, I'm in trouble for prostitution. My boyfriend and I are doing some stuff, and I'm trying to get money for him." And I was already a cop for like 6-7 years, and I really didn't know that world touched juveniles. Like, I had never thought about that. I
So
knew.
that was
Yeah.
the light bulb moment.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
How
I
are kids getting involved in this?
I had kind of the same epiphany when I was been a part of a property crimes team for about 3-4 years, and I would always kind of look down on property crimes teams as a patrol officer. I'm like, you're just handling, that's boring. And just I discovered it's on the cusp of everything. It's on the cusp of homicide, on the cusp of gang and human trafficking and all of pedophilia crap and all that. It's kind of a jack of all trades. It's a utility team, and the light bulb moment for me was when we're working with we're going after a crew, air quotes for those just listening, um, of car thieves, and 3 of them are 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what in, like, I've heard of that, I guess, but I never really
Yeah.
bought it until here I am hunting down 12-year-olds that are stealing cars more proficiently than an adult. So, yeah, but just like you said, though, you stumble into these calls, you jack up a guy that just burglarized the house. There's a female in the car. You start talking to her. You find out that he's also using her to sell her for sex, and had her for years when she was a juvenile. I mean, just these are the types of stories you start to hear, and
Yep.
you're like, what the fuck? Really? Like, how does that happen? I never put 2 and 2 together until I really started studying it. When I went for my master's degree, human trafficking was a big topic, 2016, 2017. And I learned a lot. And it wasn't even my focus. Criminology in general was the focus. But the stuff that I was learning about the human trafficking, that's why I'm glad I ran into you. I've been wanting an expert. I haven't
Oh,
found
good.
an expert. So I've gotten people that touch around it, but not some, like you said, like vice guys that work prostitution and stuff like that. But you're going to be able to give good insight. So
Yeah.
you have this epiphany moment with this juvenile. Now, is that what stemmed you, like, looking into starting to look for vice, I guess it would be?
Yeah. So it was kind of around that same time I got asked to be a decoy, posing as a prostitute working the side of the street
What was your
in
name?
Phoenix. I have lots of names: Sunshine,
Okay.
Candy.
Okay, I see both of
Yeah.
those. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Lots
Now,
of stage names.
now, did you give yourself those names, or were these picked by the Sarge or something?
No, we gave ourselves those names. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I want for any officers out there that they're looking to get into this type of work, where I'm at, they still very much do it. So that's pretty cool. But if there's anybody in civilians, if you're wondering how we do these types of investigations, one, if you're a person that goes out and buys prostitutes, you need to listen to this and don't do that crap. But for those that are just wondering how this world works in law enforcement, so how did you even start training to go do this? If you're law enforcement, stop and listen to me right now. If you're a police department that does not have an LPR system, Insight is offering the first 10 agencies, that means one agency apiece, gets one camera for free. You have to tell them that Two Cops, One Donut sent you. You heard me right. If you're a police agency that does not have an LPR system yet, or does have an LPR system, and you're not happy with the product you have, Insight is offering you a free camera. No strings attached, and they will install it. I have 10 to give out. Tell them Two Cops, One Donut sent you, or reach out to me, and I will get you in contact. If you're a business owner or an HOA, please stop and listen to me right now. If you're just listening to the audio, do yourself a favor and watch the YouTube version of this episode to get a visual of what I'm about to tell you. I want to tell you guys about Insight LPR. It's a license plate reader. If your agency, community, or business is looking to invest in LPR to help solve and deter crime or to make your community safer, Insight LPR has my vote of confidence. I've met with their team. They know their LPRs, guys. They're the real deal. They bring over 75 years of collective experience to building LPR cameras and the software that supports communities across the country. The other thing I really like about this team is how much they listen to law enforcement. They understand the importance of working together with law enforcement and getting their input as they build and innovate products and their service to match the needs of law enforcement. In other words, when I complain or have suggestions to make their damn camera better, they actually do it. The Insight LPR team is extremely passionate and takes pride in their product development, which makes their cameras some of the most durable cameras in the market. For the gear nerds out there, what that means is this stuff's made of military grade aluminum and is nitrogen purged, whatever that means. This design makes the cameras rugged and able to withstand harsh weather elements. Here's the big selling point for me. Their nighttime scan accuracy is higher than most of the leading competitors. In my opinion, this is what sets them apart. As we know, the majority of crimes occur at night, so it's critical to have high scan accuracy at night. Insight's cameras check the box with the nighttime plate read accuracy greater than 96%. 96%, guys. That's pretty freaking high. If your community is looking to invest in LPR technology, reach out to one of their experts today or reach out to me. Tell them Two Cops, One Donut sent you.
So it was, and this is where training is so important now. This was an on-the-job, hey, go out there, this is
FTO.
crime, have the conversation, and let us know with your deal signal to come in and arrest the guy. That's how it began. And it was out on the streets initially. We would do it a couple of different ways. We'd work out of a hotel room, but it wasn't where we would bring the guy back to the room. That's where we would start walking towards when they were parking or pulling around the corner to, park for us for the car date or whatever we had agreed upon. And then obviously working in hotels.
Car date.
Huh?
I love that you call it a car date.
Oh yeah, car date.
That's sweet. That's so sweet.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where obviously, you have to think about officer safety, whether or not you're going to carry a gun out there or not. And in Arizona heat, there's not really a lot of places I can conceal a firearm. So a lot of times I was not carrying, and I, had a good outline and briefing pre-operation to know where my backup was. A lot of these sex buyers, the Johns, sex buyers, they try and lure you away further down the road, behind buildings, all those things. So it really does take like a person to recognize and be constantly thinking about the scenarios that could be dangerous, because it is fun, it is sexy, but it is also, we've had some incidents where we've had female decoys grabbed, touched inappropriately, and you don't want to have a situation where you're standing outside of a vehicle and they grab a hold of you and start driving and dragging you down the street and all those things. So it's being conscious of and being aware of that fine line. Like, I'm a undercover, so I'm supposed to act like this is really going to happen and I'm really who I'm portraying, but also be officer safety. wise. And those are things that I didn't get training on. I kind of just had to learn about it. I do now present and teach in undercover schools how to do those conversations, how to remain safe, and how to have a successful operation where you don't have decoys that are getting hurt. But definitely when I did it, it was not, it was like, hey, get out there, go see if you can get a lot of dates. So,
Okay. Now, you know where I want to go with this. I want to
yeah.
hear about some of the early failures.
Yeah.
Come on, I want to give me a good story.
Well, good stories are unfortunately where you have other cops that'll pull up on you, and you
Oh,
know they are,
oh
or
no.
corrections officers because they're wearing, their BDU pants and their work shoes, and you see, their uniform shirt on the passenger side of the car,
Oh
and you're
no.
thinking, yeah, you don't want to talk to me, but then they start talking, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess you're doing this. Those are
Oh.
those are awkward.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Well, sir, you're an idiot. Pull over
yeah.
there.
I can tell you that the very first time I ever even walked up to a car, the guy was already masturbating himself, and I told him, "You started the party without me."
That's wonderful.
I know. I'm like, "Okay,
What do
I
you
got
say?
this."
What do you say? Hey, that's my job. That's what
Yeah,
I.
yeah. You started the party without me. What do
That
you need
is
me for?
that's a t-shirt right there.
Yeah.
That's a t-shirt. We just get like, the outline of a hand, a
Yeah.
little like a Mario mushroom on top of it and say, "Hey, you started the party without me."
Yeah.
You can sell those in your shop.
Yeah.
That's freaking hilarious. Okay. All right, all right. So let me get my mind right here.
Yes.
I'm trying to get more appropriate because I'm thinking
Yeah.
all the funny shit. Um, Now, as far as learning the language, there's a certain type of language. It's probably a slightly different in different areas of the country. I'm assuming, maybe even city to city. I don't know. But as far as getting to know that, did you get to watch operations before they just stuck you in, or were you just thrown to the wolves?
No, I was thrown to the wolves, but it's okay. I mean, it wasn't just me. There were several female officers that have done that before. There just wasn't any like structurized training. Terminology though comes in more to play when you're doing the undercover work in the hotels and you're actually posted up online as an escort and doing those engagements with sex buyers that we call hobbyists because they are ones that really get off on not getting caught and doing it constantly on a regular basis. And so they're the ones that will test you with language and with terminology to see if you are the police. Obviously, several other things that they do, but definitely knowledge of terminology. If you're posing as a new young person, you're not going to know certain words. So if you automatically know those things, that might put them off, or they get hinked up over all kinds of stuff.
Oh, by knowing too much.
Well, if you're posing as a 14-year-old prostitute, yeah, you can't know too
Oh,
much.
oh, shit! I
Mhm.
didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
That's see, I don't know. I'm not a criminal, I guess.
No.
I would have never even put that together.
Yeah.
Um,
But
what
I've
are
become a very good liar.
yeah, yeah.
Let's just say that.
Um,
Yeah.
well, the way I kind of look at it too is like if you ever go hunting, okay, the best time to go hunting is during the rut because
Mhm.
the deer are all sex crazed. They're not thinking right. Well, it's
Oh,
kind of the environment you're playing in, so
absolutely.
they're not exactly thinking straight. Now, what are some common tactics that these guys will use to try to prove that you're a cop or prove that you're not a cop?
Well, without giving too much away, because I don't know who all the audience would be outside of law enforcement, but definitely there are things that they do. There are forums out there where
Okay.
they will post up, she touched her hair, it's the police. Get out of there if she touches her hair, because that's indicating to the
Okay.
responding people that, which is not true, but I mean, it could be anything. But that's something that they'll put out there, or they'll put out what vehicles we're in. Sometimes we work out of like an RV. They'll post, that we're working out of an RV. They'll put out, um, you know, if we're posting online and let's say one of them got caught, they'll actually tag our ad in their post to
Ah,
kind of alert to other buyers, this is the police, don't call this girl's ad. So
Okay.
Yeah, all kinds of working against us for sure. And those are the guys that we really want to get. Obviously, we want to get, you know, low level guys that are just trying this so that we can educate them and have them not do this again. But hobbyists, the guys who do this on a daily, and I'm talking, you know, lunchtime every day and then go home to their wife, those kind of guys.
Yeah. Spreading disease and shit um to their family, don't even know it. But
Yeah.
what? Okay, I'm trying because I don't want to give away secrets by any
Yeah.
means, but I do like the funny stuff. So,
Yeah.
what are some of the funny? Is there any funny tactics these guys have tried to use that they think is something that cops
Ooh.
aren't allowed to do?
Um, a lot of it is, you know, they get hinked up over anything. Like if, let's say we go in the hotel room and I have an adjoining door to the hotel room just because that's what room we got, they'll think that that's the police in the other room because there's an adjoining door.
Oh,
Not always. We can do it without an adjoining door, but that's something that I think that they, you know, see and then turn around and walk out right away about.
okay. So now, what's your mindset? I want to kind of for officers trying to get down this path, like what's going through your head when you know you are getting into, you're going into a room or you're getting into a car. I don't know if you even get into cars or anything like that, but when you know you're getting into a situation and you're like, all right, this is the gonna be the hinkiest moment that I'm gonna have in this situation. Like, what's going through your brain?
So a lot of times it is where, and I teach about this. Unfortunately, you've got to put them at ease. We can get over the "Are you a cop? Prove you're not a cop. Are you a cop? Why are we talking about cops?" All of that. So I usually will hug them, and so a lot of officers are like, undercovers are like, "Oh, I'm not touching them, and I'm not going to let them touch me." But I feel like if I give them a hug, not only am I letting them see that I might be real, but I can also check their 90% area to see if they're armed,
Yep.
and we really get past all of that apprehension just by me letting them hug me. A hug is a hug. And it's worked
Gotcha.
well for me. The real prostitutes do it all the time. In the reverse of all of what we've been talking about, me posing as an undercover, I'm obviously the backup and the arrest team for male detectives who are posing as sex buyers, and so that's where a lot of, you know, me getting to see the actual exploited real victims come in and engage with our undercovers. So I'm seeing their demeanor, I'm seeing how they run their show, and how they tell if it's the police or not, and all of those things. So it's on the job training as far as that goes, unless you have an actual undercover school, and a person who can instruct about undercover work and that kind of, you know, training.
Okay.
It's a
And
sticky situation.
ew, I hope not.
Yeah.
um, and when you're doing this, obviously, technology's changed a lot. I actually just had this conversation with my last guest. I don't know how we got on it. We were talking about microphones, and now, like the having a wire, the old school, like everything's a wire now. Your AirPods are a wire. Your phone's a wire. Everything's a wire. So you don't have to worry about that as much anymore, do you?
No, no. I can tell you one story from a long time ago because we don't do it anymore. But we had the little cigarette pack, Marlboro
Oh, the
cigarettes,
old microphone.
and it had a 9-volt battery in it. And a lot of times we would be out there with the cigarette pack, but sometimes we would just take the portion of the recording device and put it in wherever. And a lot of times it would heat up, and I I think I almost got burned a couple of times. Besides the heat and, you know, the
Yeah.
you know, being out in the heat, I'm getting burned in my in my
R-
shirt area because of the bug.
right.
Yeah.
Um. Now, while you guys are you're getting into this world, you obviously start honing your craft and becoming successful because you kept going. If you failed a lot, I'm sure they would have booted you right out of the unit. So you get good at this. And what did you start? What was your takeaway? What were you starting to notice with the world of sex trafficking? I'm sorry, we won't say sex trafficking yet, but in prostitution.
All right. So in the early stages, because I went there in 2007, 2008, I went there for 6 months. I had, been assigned to a squad. I was on a temporary assignment with the hopes of being there, assigned there permanently. And then all of a sudden, they eliminated that squad, and I got sent back to patrol, and I had to test a second time to the position. Once I got there full time, it was January of 2009. And what I noticed then is that the focus was mostly on arresting prostitutes. And that's, where we were at. Even though we knew about traffickers, we knew about buyers, Backpage was blowing up, all of those things. It wasn't until a case, and this happened like right about the right time that I was transferring there for real, with a girl she was held in a dog crate at an apartment, a runaway juvenile. She was trafficked by an 18 and 19-year-old, male and female. And, mother knew she was at that apartment. Other people have seen her there. Patrol responded there multiple times trying to do a search for her. They didn't find her because these people had like a built up waterbed type of bed situation. And she was literally in the bed during times that she wasn't held in the dog crate. But when the police came to look, and finally they were able to find her, and and she talked about her exploitation. So that really started the focus being on traffickers more than just these undercover misdemeanor operations and going after traffickers. And that's where I changed my focus, and I've had a lot of cases that I've put traffickers in prison for hundreds of years, and I'm super proud of the career that I've had.
My best prosecution is 40 years. So you got me blown out.
Almost 500, 493.5.
Dang, I'm one person.
One person.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I would have that on my wall somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, can you give people kind of a definition of what is human trafficking, sex trafficking, and how that's different than just prostitution?
So human trafficking, human smuggling, those words get confused. So human smuggling, if you think about that, and that's, we're near the border. I know you've had guests on talking about the border and the trafficking that's going on with that. Human smuggling is a crime against the border, whereas human trafficking is a crime against a person. And that trafficking can be through forced labor or forced sex. And so for us to prove a crime of human trafficking, and I come from the perspective of mostly sex trafficking, we haven't really had a lot of labor trafficking cases come to our attention. Not that it's not happening. We have a situation where these victims of labor trafficking don't realize that they're victims. They're making more money here in the United States than they are in their other country. And so they don't come forward because they don't know that they're a victim. Whereas sex trafficking, we do have victims that come forward, and we do contact them through those prostitution contacts. And really, what it is the evolution of and our understanding of sex trafficking. We're recognizing that people are being exploited out there. They're not there under their own free will. They're actually not free to leave, even though they may be walking down the side of the road with a phone in their hand. They're not free to leave. And we have some repair to do as far as our relationship with those exploited victims, because they literally have been told by their trafficker, the police are just going to arrest you. And that's exactly what we were doing before. And so we're trying to change that now, as far as, obviously there are some individuals that are out there working independent and committing that crime without the direction or exploitation of another person. But there are individuals that are definitely being exploited. And so deciphering through that is what we do on a daily basis.
Now, I got kind of a two-parter here.
Yeah.
There's going to be people, civilians especially, that are going to hear that and they'll be like, do they not have a family they can go to? Like, how can they be walking freely and they don't just get away? So let's go down that path. I know the answer, but I would like to hear from you.
Yeah. And so that's where since retiring, and we didn't even get through my career, but I retired in October of 2021 after almost 14 years in the human exploitation and trafficking unit. That's where I see the power of awareness. I see me presenting about trafficking, what the indicators are, what trafficking is, how victims become vulnerable, what traffickers do to recruit and groom and keep these victims exploited, and then sex buyers and their part in this entire situation, creating the demand for this problem. That is what I present on and speak on. And I have built a whole course on because I want people to have a full understanding of this because I have an ulterior motive. Every time I go present, I see the community members as future jurors, and I know that I need those juries to understand what trafficking is, what it isn't, how these victims are vulnerable. Because when I have them on my case and I want them to deliver a guilty verdict, they're going to need to understand all of the parameters and dynamics of the life and of sex trafficking victims. And, you know, it is a huge burden to be a juror, and I understand that. That trial that I went through with the almost 500-year sentence, that was a 7-month long trial. I testified 11 times. But the jury understood and learned through the use of expert witness testimony and obviously the victims that came to testify what sex trafficking is and what that victim's going to have to live with for the rest of their life. And so that's my ulterior motive for my awareness mission and everything that I'm doing now.
Beautiful. I hope
In a
I'm able.
nutshell.
Hopefully, I'm able to help you get that message out there. So,
Yeah.
what is the typical living environment for your person that's being human trafficked?
So part of that recruitment and grooming is to get the victim away from their family, away from the familiar. And so isolation is huge for a trafficker to isolate their victim. They're constantly traveling, they're very transient. They're from, hotel to hotel, city to city, state to state. One, because they don't want to get caught by the police. And then two, because they want their victim to be so dependent on them that when they're in one place too long and they start to get to know like the hotel desk clerk or the custodial person at the hotel, the trafficker is going to uproot them again because they don't want that person, a normal person, to talk to them about getting out and leaving their trafficker. And so that's part of keeping them constantly mobile is the isolation.
Okay, and then I know drug dependency is a big one. They'll get them dependent on drugs and facilitate that dependency. And
Drugs is huge. I've literally got Facebook search warrant evidence of the private messaging between, and this is just one example of this particular trafficker saying, "Do this date first," and the girls, multiple of the victims, are saying, "Daddy, can I have a pill? Do this date first. Daddy, can I, go to bed or go see my family or a friend? Do these dates first." So totally controlling them through every means, and the fentanyl pills are a huge part of this as well right now.
yeah, fentanyl is, man, that is a scary, scary drug. Um, and I've had Chris Foreman out of Washington. He runs. He's the president for the narcotics group up over in that state, and pretty big name in the narc world. And we kind of went down that rabbit hole about fentanyl. Derek Maltz is another one that's got a big. He's a federal agent that's pushing the awareness on fentanyl. But
Yeah, we've got
I was
Brock
gonna,
Bevel.
yeah, I was gonna say the fact
Yeah.
that that is
Mhm.
in pharmaceuticals now. They're pill pressing and hiding and putting fentanyl in everyday pills that people would normally have, and that's the scary part to me.
Yeah. Well, also laced with other things like tranquilizer and all this other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah,
dangerous.
yeah. So just in that, because you get these kids that are out there and they think they're taking a Xanax, which is a pretty common pill, and it's got fentanyl in it. And if you're not a drug user that's used to that type of dope anyway, just a little bit's gonna kill you,
Yeah.
or get you pretty damn close. So, yeah, fentanyl is a big thing. But man, that is crazy. The Just even having the evidence that they're talking back and forth, and you see the writing on the wall right there. And this is where civilians are going to look at that and they'll be like, why can't I don't understand why they can't get out of that. Well, you
So yeah, I didn't really talk about the grooming process, but part of that process is um, learning everything that they can about their victim, where their parents work, what kind of cars they drive, where their siblings go to school, how old are they, what are their name. And for a victim, you're thinking this person's interested in you and like a relationship type thing, and then they flip the script on you, and then they have all this information about you to threaten you with it. And those threats are very real. The whole time, the one thing that I try and impress upon people is that a trafficker or a pimp, one and the same person, same word, just two different ways to say it, is the most reliable person you will ever meet. If they say they're going to beat your ass, they're going to beat your ass. If they say they're going to take you to your parents' house and point a gun at their house, and depending on their mood right then, they might shoot at your parents' house. They're going to get you in the car. They're going to pull the gun out and they're going to point it at your parents' house. They have to have these victims believe that what they say is going to happen because they don't have anything else. And that's part of the control as well as the isolation. Those threats are very real. And that's why these victims are walking down the side of the road with a phone in their hand. They could call the police at any time, but they don't because they know what will happen because they've been conditioned to know if I do this, that equals my trafficker acting this way.
Dang. We actually I heard, I wasn't a part of this, but I heard of people being trafficked where they were putting the Apple AirTags on them, hiding them in their stuff. So not only were they tracking them by their phone, they were also tracking them in another way in case they ditched their phone or something like that. That
Yeah,
they
Life
did.
360 is another one.
I use
Lots of
that. I
traffickers
use that
using
with
that.
my kids.
Yeah, traffickers use it too.
I'm
Yeah,
not supporting trafficking, I promise.
yeah.
Um, how old are we talking? What's the age ranges for the most susceptible?
So nationally, it's lower than it was before when I first started. Like when I first started, it was 14, 15. Now it's like 12, 13,
Oof.
sometimes 11. My youngest that I've ever had was 12.
Okay. I've got a 12-year-old daughter in the house right now.
Yeah,
So,
really scary.
yeah.
And what's even more scary is towards the end of my career, the last couple of years, we were working on catfishing pimps. And so I created undercover personas on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, um, Bumble, Plenty of Fish, Moco Space, all of these undercover personas so that we could engage with traffickers, have them recruit us instead of a live, real person. And what I learned with that is, and what I'm seeing since I've retired, is that all of these apps on the phone and the social media and the ability for private messaging opens the door for traffickers to come into your kid's bedroom and literally recruit and groom them from their bedroom. That's what's going on right now, especially with kids who have open to the public profiles and they think they're going to be Instagram famous. If they leave it open, they can get all the followers and make a bunch of money like they see on YouTube. That's an open door to predators, to sex buyers, and traffickers.
Um, I had Randy Schneider, I believe his name
Randall.
is.
Yeah.
Randall. So I had him on, and
Yes.
we kind of touched on that because our episode was about his specialty and
Yes.
specifically children. And I asked him he gave me a very discouraging answer, but when you're doing this type of work, when you're going on to these websites or using these apps or things that our kids are using too. I mean, I think he said Roblox and other like games
Minecraft.
and Minecraft, yeah. Where these guys are actively trying to recruit your kids. Now, did you face the same type of numbers he did? He said it was more than they could even like go
It's
after.
pretty overwhelming. It is
Yeah.
overwhelming because, our human trafficking unit had 8 detectives, 2 sergeants for the 5th largest city in the United States. And I know that I'm not an ICAC guy. Randall was an ICAC guy. His is, dealing with people who are trying to have sex with kids. I'm dealing with people who are trying to prostitute and sexually exploit kids in a little bit of a different way. And so my experience is from that. But,
Right.
both of us can honestly say that we're absolutely overwhelmed. it's, I mean, every day, like literally, I just had someone tell me about the Saturn app, which is an app that the school is sponsoring at this person's school for them to communicate with the teachers and the classmates. And criminals and predators and sex buyers and traffickers are finding a way to infiltrate that app and communicate with and have a whole crop of people that they can try and reach out to and exploit. So,
What
I
the
mean, that
fuck?
app just happened this year, this school year. So,
Jeez. Now, when we're talking these type of numbers, in your experience, like, are we talking like 5 out of 10 people that we deal with that could possibly be a predator? I mean, this seems reasonable.
so that's where I wanted to come back to training. Because
Okay.
in the academy, I didn't, in 98, when I was in the academy, I did not have a human trafficking class. Did you have a human trafficking class?
No.
So we have a whole bunch of cops out there that don't recognize what's right in front of their face. So since 2014, Phoenix Police Department, at least, because I created the class and had been teaching it before I retired, uh, we're instructing our officers to recognize when you pull over a vehicle, this might be a human trafficking more than just a speeding ticket or driving on suspended license. Um, or when you go to a loud noise complaint at a hotel, and we show up there, we get people's info, we say, hey, if we have to come back, somebody's going to go to jail if you guys disturb the peace again.
Yeah.
That's what we do. But in all of those instances, you could be at a hotel room where you've got a trafficker and 3 victims, and we aren't seeing it. And I actually have a Facebook Live video of a pimp bragging on his Facebook Live in the middle, or like in the middle of a parking lot near a gas station where there's 5 patrol cars dealing with whatever they're dealing with. He's in the background showing the patrol cars in the background of his live and bragging about them not seeing him. He literally screams at his prostitute. He's making money, fall all over the ground in the gas station, and just constantly talking shit about how we don't see him and we really hadn't been, and sometimes we still aren't because we don't have any training on what to look at, what to recognize. So it's
Yeah.
definitely an issue.
And let's be honest. I think there's a lot of patrol guys that don't want to see it.
Yeah, these are
I'm
not easy cases. I mean,
yeah.
I, over the years, had so many where I interviewed a victim for 3 hours. I did a search warrant. I arrested a bad guy. I submitted charges. The victim, an adult, decided they didn't want to press charges anymore once they got their plane ticket to go home, and the whole case went away. What a
Yeah.
waste of fucking time.
Yeah.
So definitely, it's not an easy job. I almost think that homicide's easier because your victim isn't going to disappear on you. You know where your victim's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very because I mean, just like I told you, at least in the property crimes realm, we're always going to those hotels. That is where this stuff's being fenced or just taken to after they hit a lick. Like that is common. So we go to these shitbag hotels, and I can see the writing on the wall, but that's not my specialty. For
Mhm.
one, I'm on a different specialized unit, but two, you see patrol guys going in and out of there all the time, and they are not putting any type of cases on those. One, because they're probably not trained um, to recognize it or anything like that, or two, they just don't know how. It's not that they don't recognize it; they see it, see the writing on the wall, but they don't know how to go after it. Best they can
Yeah.
do is hope their department has a person like you to say, "Hey, we see this activity. Can you guys go do something on it?"
Yeah, that, or if because we used to do briefings, so we would show up in briefings, third shift, day shift,
Hit
you
up
know,
roll calls and
swing.
stuff.
And yeah, and we would be, introduce ourselves. We are the detectives that put our number and our name on the whiteboard, but we're actually going to answer the phone.
Yeah,
Or your boss will call like the General Investigations Bureau and they'll call us out because we have 2 detectives on standby 24/7. So through grant funding, we're able to do that and we'll respond out. I was on my high 3. I'm going to definitely come out for overtime. So
right.
we definitely encouraged officers to, you know what, if you show up, you got a kid, even if you don't have them disclose and they suspect, let's interview them. Or you've got a kid that's constant runaway, you've recovered them multiple times, They were found in a bad area of town near like a known area for prostitution. Let's interview them.
Okay, so
Simple as that.
that's your advice to the patrol guys out there. If you're seeing these types of things, let your vice team know. Let
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
somebody in that realm. I'm fortunate. I got a department that actually has, a trafficking um, team, and we also have a vice team. We have two separate. So,
Yeah.
and they help each other out all the time. So it's very cool. But not everybody's got those. So if you're at a small town agency, at least get Heidi's number. I'm sure she can
Yeah.
guide you.
I've actually had that. I did a Facebook Live for another female officer's Facebook, and one of the girls called me from like, I want to say it was Minnesota or something, and she was going to be interviewing a girl the very next day, and she's like, they're having me do it because I'm the only female on my department, and I don't know what to say to this kid or how to ask them questions. And so I actually have like a whole, for only officers, obviously, a whole interview questions list of things to ask during a child sex trafficking interview. I teach a class on it. Besides all of the, working for Phoenix Police Department, I am an instructor for the National Criminal Justice Training Center, Fox Valley Technical College. And so I'm a forensic interviewer. I teach how to interview child sex trafficking victims, how to interrogate these kind of suspects, and put these cases together with corroborative evidence to submit for successful prosecution. So, training is huge. These cases are not easy. You got to have, put in some effort. And even patrol guys, you can call a detective and they'll do it. All you'll have to do is transport the victim for us, or maybe stand by at the hotel
Yeah,
so our evidence doesn't get stolen. You know,
yeah,
so.
yeah. You ain't lying.
Hmm.
All right. Now, I'm 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 trying to think of other perspectives as far as civilian and law enforcement side. I think I've kind of hit what I was wanting to ask and what the life is like. And
Well,
um,
yeah, for civilians though, recognize the indicators as well. I've had so many victims literally describe getting their ass beat at a bus stop in the middle of the day, and people just walked by, people just drove by, nobody called the police, nobody did nothing. And, that's really a problem.
yeah,
Get involved. You can get involved anonymously. You don't have to have a patrol car show up to your house. Leave your contact number at least so that we can call and ask you if you happen to get the license plate or if you can identify this person, but at least call, because I mean, there's so many people after Sound of Freedom. Did you hear about that movie?
yes,
So many
yes,
people are asking me, well, how can I get involved in the fight? Well, pick up the phone when you see something happen. That's like step number one.
yep,
Know where to report. There's the National Human Trafficking Hotline. There's a little bit of a delay in calling that. Local law enforcement, like if it's happening right now, that would be a call to 911, your local PD, so that you can get patrol out there and they can roll out detectives or however that's going to play out. But definitely make a phone call. You can send in a text message to the hotline. You can call your local silent witness, even maybe get a reward. Who knows? But get involved, make that call, and know
yes,
the indicators.
yeah. It's the ability to report anonymously. That's a big thing lately. That we really didn't have much of that available to people without leaving their house of some sort of way, or um, getting them like a specific email or something like that. But now it's been around for a little while, and the ability to report anonymously is it's huge, and I think it gives the
Yeah.
people a good peace of mind.
I think
But
people get scared when a police car shows up out front, like all the neighbors going to know I called the police.
yes,
And
and
you can report things without that.
yeah, and in some of the areas that we're talking about with the specific crimes we're talking about, like they're gonna know, and it's not good that they knew you called the cops because
Yeah.
they will do something. They will
Yeah.
retaliate. So it's important to have that out there, and it's pretty cool that you guys are offering that.
Hmm.
So through your career in doing this, you obviously saw the need. You became an instructor. You created courses, and you retire at top of your game. I guess you could say, and you decide to create.
I had a bad divorce. I'm
Is
one of
that what it
those
was?
dudes.
Oh, I didn't even think to ask you about that. You were married while
Yeah.
you were doing this?
Oh yeah. 19 years. Yeah.
Oh shit.
That's not why we got divorced, but
Oh, okay. Okay, I was gonna
that's
say
a whole
that.
other class for the academy though. How to
Yeah,
survive a divorce as a cop. I
yeah, I
could
was
teach
gonna
that
say
class.
because well, it's already divorce rates bad enough as
Yeah.
cops, but whenever you're a part of a specialized unit, especially UC work,
Mhm.
I think every UC guy I've had on my show has been divorced. Now,
I'm one of those dudes. Yeah.
yeah, my one of my buddies I work with, he was deep undercover narcotics, Aryan Brotherhood crap, and he got divorced. And then when he got out of, I think he did it like 10 years, but when he got out of that and went back into regular police work and stuff and slowly became himself again, got back with his ex-wife and they're married again.
Oh wow.
Yeah, had a baby.
Yeah,
And
that's not
so,
gonna happen for me.
yep. Sorry. Uh,
Yeah.
um, but yeah,
But
that
yeah, it
will.
was that's why I retired. I would have been doing this longer. It's just I had to cut the head off the dragon because the more money or the longer I stayed, the more money he was gonna make off of me. So
Ah, okay, okay. I hear you.
yeah.
Strategy. This is a good strategy. I like it.
Yeah. I
Okay.
regret it sometimes. I mean, I really loved what I was doing, and that's why I started my own consulting and training business after.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's get into that. What is your
Sure.
consulting?
So I have my website, A Chance for Awareness. And basically, on there, I have kind of two missions. One is community awareness, all the things that we've been talking about, getting the community to be good jurors and report things and recognize trafficking happening in their community. And then the other side of it is law enforcement coaching and training. So I have traveled all over the United States, training law enforcement as far as undercover operations, interviewing child sex trafficking victims, all those things. And I can do it virtually or in person. And it's almost where we literally, I offer an option to post ads and have detectives or patrol officers coming in from patrol practice how to talk to these sex buyers on the phone, have
Really?
some caller ads and stuff. So it's one
Okay.
of those really exciting parts of the undercover work is having it go on in action through real life situations there. But it's definitely rewarding as far as sharing all of my experience because I want to pass the torch on. I want officers to be excited about doing these cases. That's really the only way we're going to fight this problem if we all start doing proactive operations to target sex buyers and traffickers.
Now I'm looking at your photos here and
Yeah.
I still can't picture you passing for a prostitute.
Oh, I changed up my appearance. Um, I don't know if you ever saw the Frontline PBS documentary, Sex Trafficking in America.
I have not.
That was a documentary done on our unit. Frontline PBS followed us for 3 years. And so basically, you'll see me change up what I look like, wear wigs, all that stuff. But it's giving everyone a true depiction of domestic sex trafficking happening here in the
Okay.
United States, in our community. So it's a really good documentary.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you have a
yeah,
blog as well, too.
I do.
Okay. Well, this
Yeah,
is awesome because now, you know, it, you can only get so much from a podcast. And what my goal is people, one, they got to know you. They see your personality, it's a lot better to see your personality on something like this versus, a little soundbite here and there. So
yeah,
now they're going to know, the person behind the mission, and it's going to encourage them to dig a little bit more and they can get all the real answers. I'm not the answer person, people, and this episode is not designed to I know you cheap cops out there, it's not to circumvent you having to go to one of her classes either.
right.
So make sure you seek her out and have her
Yeah,
come teach at your place or do it virtually. But no, so you got blogs here. Obviously, I know it's going to be about sex trafficking, but what
yeah.
type of stuff are you talking about?
So my blogs are focused mostly for the community awareness side. So I'll talk about the indicators, I'll talk about why victims fall into this lifestyle, the
Okay.
recruitment, some of the terminology, some of the things that I can share that aren't undercover related.
Okay.
That's for the
Yeah.
sworn classes. Yeah.
Gotcha. I see that you've got bringfreedom.org.
Yeah,
Po-
that was another podcast that I was on. So
okay.
I'll be adding this one to my
Awesome.
repertoire here.
Appreciate it. I am a huge fan of sharing. We're cops, and at
Yeah.
the end of the day, we all got the same mission: catch more bad guys and help out citizens. So,
Yes.
if listening to that podcast helps do that, and they get to listen to
So
you in there.
if you go down a little bit, that's the link to the documentary right there.
Oh, right here.
No, go down a little bit more.
Okay.
A little bit more. It's it's got a picture of, yeah, right there, sex trafficking in America.
Oh, I see
That's
it. I
the
see
link
it.
to the
Yeah, yeah,
documentary. And
yeah.
then the other two links are that big case that I briefly talked about with the almost 500-year sentence.
Uh
And
huh.
then the other case is a case that I did right before I retired. One victim, one trafficker, 108 years in prison. The other one
Oh,
had 7 victims.
okay.
Yeah.
Nice,
But just
man.
to show, as an
Yeah.
investigator, as a detective, getting justice for these victims and the evolution of this whole situation, also, they were offering 8, 9, 10 years back in 2000, 1-ish, when I first was submitting cases. Fast forward to now, I mean, hundreds of years. And, obviously that's involving a trial as well, but definitely the understanding of prosecutors and judges and detectives doing a better job is resulting in higher sentences for these guys. So it's all good things.
Is there an epiphany moment for these victims that realize I'm a victim?
Sometimes they don't. I think for the one case that I'm talking about with the 7 victims, that juvenile was familial trafficking. It was her uncle that was trafficking her. Her epiphany moment was when he told her he was going to pursue getting her younger sister involved. And her younger sister was the same age she was when he first had sex with her. She was 13. So on that day that she was told that by him, she was only 16, but she still had, balls enough to call her sister and get the police rolling and disclose all of this. So they definitely have an epiphany moment. A lot of victims, feel shame. They feel a lot of shame related to, they know what they're doing is wrong. They know that their family, wouldn't approve of some of their behaviors that was encouraged by the trafficker. So it's definitely, I think, in the back of their mind, but just the overpowering voice of the trafficker and the threats are what keeps them stuck in it.
Yeah, I would think that there's going to be, for some of the runaways and stuff like that, they are going to truly believe that they weren't trafficked, that they weren't victims necessarily, and I'm just curious how that deprogramming starts. Like that's got to be a rough road.
Yeah, a lot of it, and we're doing better now, is involving survivor victim advocates, those individuals that are out of the life, they've gone through their own recovery, and they're able to offer, their experience, their lived experience as a, soundboard for how to get a victim to get out of it or to talk to police even or to survive the 1, 2, 3, 5 years that a case goes through the court system, which is also another reason why these cases are so hard because keeping a victim wanting to still press charges is really hard as time goes by.
Yeah, and if they're juveniles, that's different. But if they're adults, how does that work? Now, this is for my own. Like, if they become an adult while the case is going on, does that not matter as long as the crimes occurred while they were still juveniles?
Yeah, that doesn't change anything.
Okay.
It does make them a little harder to find because typically when they're a juvenile, we can call their parents or they're in child welfare and we have, a way to find them. So if they dip out on us, that case gets put on hold or goes to the wayside. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of traffickers that I arrested years ago that pop back up and are trafficking a new juvenile. And what we've been doing and what we've evolved to do is coinciding with an actual victim is going after the trafficker for money laundering and illegal enterprise charges because all of the financial gains that they're getting are based off of illegal activity. And so doing that felony case alongside one with a victim is what we're leaning more towards now, because I've, like I said, lost a lot of cases wherein victims change their mind or disappear, or no longer want to press charges. So
What is it like for the parents once they get their kid back? Let's we're dealing with a juvenile. What is the process to help them process what the hell just happened to their kid?
there is definitely a lot of parents with lived experience of their kid being trafficked coming forward. I know that right now in Arizona, we're going through the trial with Backpage, and part of that was all of these parents coming forward. One of the one of the victims actually was murdered, and her mother is testifying. And so it's huge. I do think we're lacking in the support system for family that goes through all of this. We're doing a better job getting support for victims. We're still not totally solved that problem yet, but we definitely really need to work on family support also.
Okay. That may be another episode that I want to do. You just gave me a good idea, because that is, I'm trying to, through this show, this is one of the cool things about doing this podcast, and I think you are going to say the same thing about what you're doing. As I go, I have my set of expertise, but I find myself learning and discovering new ways to help or new ways to attack things that I never considered. And I don't think I would have ever considered had I not done what I'm doing here. So families and like, that's not a topic I would have ever thought to cover. But while we were talking, I'm like, I'm a parent. I couldn't imagine what I would do when you bring my daughter to my front steps saying, we got your daughter back. She's held, she's safe and sound, but she's had hundreds of people have sex with her, like, and she's addicted to dope and all these things. Like,
Yeah.
how do you begin to even tell that? Is that something you had to do personally? Like,
So
explain this stuff?
well, I mean, a lot of times it is in that interview with the juvenile where they're like, "Are you going to tell my mom about what happened?" And
Yeah.
it's, one of those things where I kind of put it to them that everything's public record that we do. I'm not wanting to share details. I'm going to have to call your mom and tell her we've been talking, and give you back to her. But I'll let you tell her, what you feel you want to tell her. But I'm going to have to give her a gist of some kind to prepare her for what you need.
Yeah.
Whether you just had a SANE exam and now you have prescriptions to fill for STDs, we're going to have to talk about that with your mom. So it's where I think honesty in that interview and answering their questions. And that's another thing I teach on when I talk about interviewing these victims, is being prepared for their questions that they're going to ask you.
Yeah. Shit. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I'm depressed now because now you got me thinking of my kids, and I'm like, shit,
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I cannot imagine going through that. And, cops' kids are some of the most susceptible to doing some bullshit, just like preachers' kids.
Yes.
I don't know what the deal is.
Yes.
As being a cop's kid myself, I did a lot of dumb shit when I was a kid. So,
Yeah. It's one of those things that I keep telling parents, and that's part of the community awareness side of this, is having these conversations early, putting tools in place. Like I'm an affiliate for Bark Technologies and for Gab Wireless. And those are two companies that developed phones that look like smartphones, touchscreen, all that, but they're actually controlled by the app and the device. And it'll notify parents if someone's trying to ask them to send nudie photos or talk to them inappropriately, or they download a new app, that wasn't approved by the parents. And I think having that tool, having the conversations, and having the expectation that, and the open door policy that we need to talk about the people you're talking to on a regular, and not being so, you guys go to your room, I'm going to watch TV or wind down from the day, and they're off in their room doing who knows what and getting encouraged by who knows who.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself, and I know better. And I've actually taken steps. My oldest, she's 14. Taking her,
2 girls.
Yeah, 2 girls. Yep. And I'm taking her to CACU, our Crimes Against Children unit, specifically the internet crimes. and just gonna have her do a little, not interview, but tour, see what it's
Yeah.
like. And it's one thing when you hear it from your dad, but it's totally different when you're hearing it from somebody else that does it on the daily and can explain it, a lot better than
Yeah.
I'll be able to. So,
Yeah. And there's new movies coming out, like Wake Up. The Wake Up movie is coming out. I think it comes out August 23rd. That's another really good movie based on a true story of a girl that was trafficked as a juvenile. Our documentary, The Sound of Freedom, and Taken, and those types of movies are all good, but they kind of like give this perception that it's an abduction. And I really want people to
yeah,
understand that's like maybe 15% of how this happens. The other percent of how this happens is the coercion, the false promises,
yeah,
the grooming
yeah,
and the
brainwashing them
yeah,
yeah, it's a very long play manipulation that obviously
yeah.
works. And the money that's made like
Mhm.
is insane. What is a typical uh sex act like? What are people get? What are these pimps making in a week, a year?
So I typically say I mean I've never really had a pimp with more than 30K in cash. Maybe they have it, in bank accounts, cryptocurrency, all of that. Typically these domestic pimps that I've been describing and where my perspective comes from, they don't have a lot of money. They are blowing through that shit like nobody's business. They're renting
They're living
Maserati.
like a pimp.
Yeah, they're, flashy with their jewelry, their, Louis Vuitton shoes with the red bottoms, and they're showing all that on their social media to portray themselves as good, this perception of this amazing, successful pimp. But really, it's not been my experience that they have a lot of money because they blow through it so fast. But they definitely are making a lot of money. So if you have one pimp and they have a quota, and the quota is basically each of their victims, let's say they have three girls, has to make $1,000 a night before they can come back to the hotel room to shower, to eat, to change clothes, to change shoes, even. Otherwise, they're going to get beat up over not coming back with that $1,000. I mean, realistically, yes, they are making a lot of tax free money. And that's where we're moving towards the financial investigations and doing the illegal enterprise money laundering cases on them, because all of that is subject to seizure, and taking their shit is the best ever.
It is,
Yeah.
isn't it? I love taking
Yeah.
people's stuff
Yeah.
when they're bad guys, man. I did a catalytic converter.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, we did a detail for that, and we got these guys crossing state lines and just they're basically they're the reason your catalytic converters are getting taken because they are buying them black market at low
Mhm.
cost from all these drug seeking people for the most part that are cutting your cats off of your cars, and they're going across state lines making $500,000 in a year just recycling stuff. That was what was driving the market. So we took their van, we took all the catalytic converters that they had with them at the time, which was like 80 something in the back of this van. And
Wow.
I mean, if people knew the type of money they were making just on that, and now we're talking sex
Yeah.
trafficking, which is, I would think, a little bit more lucrative because the demand is so much higher. And the demand is the crazy part that you brought up that I don't think anybody's fully understanding and seeing the writing on the
Yeah.
wall. Because
So we did a whole like week long operation just to figure out what is the demand. And so we had 10 female undercovers posting ads for prostitution. And we had this cool algorithm, computer algorithm, that captured people's IP address when they clicked on the link for our ad. And so we already had some identifying information for these people. And then when they called us, we got their phone number. Then we're working towards, in the back side of things, identifying them. And in that weeks long operation, we would engage in conversations about sex for money. And we would get to the point. If you've ever called an escort, it's a 3 call process.
I have not. I'm glad you told me that.
Typically it's, hey, what kind of rates do you have, what kind of things can I get, and what part of town are you in? And then they call back and say, hey, I'm close by, where's the hotel? And then the last call is, what room number? Anyway,
I would like to buy one sex, please.
so
Cop.
basically it is, In that week-long operation, in when we established the crime, the next call, when they called back for the room number, I've already sent them on the opposite side of town on purpose because I wanted them to waste their time and their gas. But they call and they say, I'm here. And I introduce myself as Detective Chance with the Phoenix Police Department, Human Trafficking Unit. We've captured your IP address, Bill. And I'd refer them as their real name to get that oh shit factor, like, holy shit, this really is the police. And in an attempt to give them a warning, and we only did it that 1 week. Like, we're not giving warnings for these guys, but this was just to do this operation to determine the numbers. And basically, we determined based off all of those parameters and clicking on our ads and during times and how often and all of those things, 100,000 men are buying sex in Arizona
In a week.
daily.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Daily.
Yeah. In Arizona, the whole state. But it's one of those things where, we wanted to know how bad the problem was. And when people ask how bad is Arizona, there's ranking, but there's really not a way to put numbers to this whole thing unless you're doing operations like that and can, project based on this activity, this is what we're seeing. But for victims, people put out there's 27 billion victims in the United States. We have no idea. We can't put a number because we don't have victims that come forward and tell us. We do usually have to go find them. And so there really isn't a way to put a number on how many victims. We know how many we've recovered, but there are so many more out there that we haven't.
That's insane. Holy shit. That isn't, I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
Wasn't ready for that
A
number.
lot. And so that's where this whole problem would be eliminated if we could stop the demand.
Yeah.
And that's part of my awareness too, is I talk about sex buyers. I talk about how they're not remorseful for what they're doing. I talk about how they don't recognize that they're contributing to this problem. I talk about, the consequences now and how it's getting worse for buyers, which rightfully so, it should be. And so part of that is a deterrent to attack the demand.
And the other part that is, so the argument's going to be it's a victimless crime. That's going to be the argument from people that either one, don't understand, or two, just like you said, that's the type of mentality these bad guys are taking, is that it's not hurting anybody. So
Yeah.
what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, just like we've already talked about, someone that's offered false promises, coerced, or forced, which are the elements of human trafficking, sex trafficking, they are a victim. They are being exploited. They don't have the ability to give consent to what's happening to them knowledgeably. And, we need to have the public also recognize that as well, that they are victims. I mean, we're already behind. We're trying to repair that relationship, and we need victims to see that also. Yeah.
What's the percentage that you would say is juveniles that are being victimized?
I don't know what we could put a number to that because we don't know how many juveniles that.
I mean, in your experience, like is the majority of the ones that you've dealt with juveniles, or?
I can tell you that since COVID, there is a stat out there that there's been a 93% increase in child sex trafficking because of COVID, not because of the COVID disease, but because
Right.
the parents that, had to go to work still and their kids are left home because the schools are closed and they're unattended and they're on their computers or their phones and predators just poured in. So that's where that number comes from. And I
Okay.
would say that would be a
Okay.
good example of this problem magnified
All
in
right.
the last couple of years.
Okay. Well, you have opened my eyes up even more. I think I'm a pretty knowledgeable guy. I have an ear for a lot of this stuff, but between you and Randall Snyder,
Yeah.
Jesus, depressing me. I gotta hold on to my kids tight at night
Yes.
because it makes me nervous. Is there anything that you want to hit on? Anything we didn't cover that you would like to hit on?
Yeah, just for and we saw my website for the general public. I do have that course that I created that talks through all of this as far as that evolution that I was hinting to, and more about victim vulnerabilities, sex buyers, and then traffickers. And then I also touch on resources, indicators, how to report, where to report, and how to get involved. I think with Sound of Freedom and other documentaries coming out, I think it's a wonderful thing that human trafficking or sex trafficking is actually in people's minds. And we can only do better by getting people more involved in the fight. So, as far as community awareness, that's one of my goals. As far as law enforcement, I am very passionate about training law enforcement on how to do these undercover operations, avoid entrapment, get the the PC and get the job done as far as getting these bad guys in custody and really getting inspired to pursue these kinds of cases, even though they're very difficult to see through, to successful prosecution. But I've learned so much going through those trials that, it's really rewarding to see the end and be able to speak on and inspire other detectives and officers to get involved. So,
Yeah, I'm hoping that's what they get out of this because, um, like I told you, like it's just amazed me doing this how much I've had cops reach out. I'm like, man, I'm glad you had that, like Randall on. I
yeah.
was kind of wanting to get into that realm, and he made me want to do it even more now. And I would love to encourage other people that want to do that because I have no desire to want
Yeah.
to do any of this. It definitely intimidates me. But you want the people that want to do this. So I'm hoping we inspire the right ones to go do this job. And you obviously are going to be keep going around the country and stuff. Have you been involved with the Real Time Crime Center Association at all?
No, I would love to get involved with them. I know
I
that they had a conference coming up.
Yes, and so we've
Hmm.
been having workshops and stuff, and one of the ones I think we're going to be touching on is I think human trafficking is part of that.
Oh,
It's
okay.
it's not a main focus necessarily. It's
Send
just a
them my info.
yeah. So well, I'm a board member, so I
Oh,
definitely
okay.
yeah.
Nice. Very
So
good.
I definitely
Yeah.
want to get you in the door for that.
Yeah.
Very very easy to do. It's not hard, so I don't want to act like I'm a
Yeah.
miracle worker.
Yeah. I presented at big, huge conferences like Shared Hope International.
You going to be at the IACP this year?
I have not spoken at that one yet. I did do a
Girl, that needs to
Homeland
be your
Security
thing.
one. Yeah.
That have you been to one?
I haven't.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
So I went to
I
my
got a lot
first,
of chiefs that I've connected with on LinkedIn, though.
yes. So
Yeah.
I went to my first one last year and I had no clue. It is the place to be for exactly what you're doing. It's the
Okay.
place to be. So you will be able to network and all those chiefs that you're friends with on LinkedIn, you'll be
Uh
seeing
huh.
up close and personal. And
Okay.
yeah, yeah, it's fun. It's a good time. But
Yeah.
all right. I think I've got everything that I was looking to get. We hit what you wanted to hit.
Yes.
I appreciate you being on. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much. And
Wonderful.
if you ever need this platform for anything, you got, a special 30-minute thing you want to do, a live, anything like that, my platform is your platform.
All right.
Because I love your mission. I love what you're doing. And I think it's great stuff. So definitely want to help you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anytime, ma'am. All right. As soon as
Bye.
this is done, just hang out for a second and
Okay.
we'll finish up. Thank you.
Huh?